Hey everybody, it's Pyra Draculea. It has been forever since, or it seems that way since I did a video, and I believe the last one was a sketchbook tour of the Bono Mouse sketchbook, if I remember. Hey, editing Pyra, remember to put a link to that. Anyways, if I forget, which I probably will, just look on my videos on my channel and you can find it. The idea was, and I know I already did like a 45-minute video explaining this, so I'm trying to think of a 45-second version. Basically, I wanted to practice drawing. At the time, there wasn't any life drawing available, but there were tons of photos of Bono in my Facebook feed from YouTube friends and other groups like that. And I decided to do that, but it seemed like a stupid idea, so I figured I'd make it even stupider by drawing him as a mouse. And anyways, blah, blah, blah. I get into it in the other video. But I mentioned in there that I had all these little side characters, right? And just picking out one page, especially looking at, like, I was going to say Fly Era, but that's actually an Elevation Tour era photo. That one's Fly Era. But the drawings of Bono Mouse in the Fly Era started to mutate in my brain, and they ended up becoming a character that would become Ricky B. Rat. And I think I said, oh, and I have sketchbooks, I'll do a tour of those eventually, and that day has come today. There are other characters, well, the little marginal mouseman evolved into Miles, who became Ricky's buddy. Anyways, by the way, you're going to see the back of my shoulder because I am squished. I have just moved this desk. I think the last time I was filming, I was in the nook next to my kitchen, which is a former porch that got enclosed and all that, but I just found I didn't use it as a painting space as much as I planned to, because it's like I have a very short driveway and I'm kind of neurotic about people watching me work. So even if the reality is nobody's watching me work, but you know, narcissism, like everybody's standing on the sidewalk watching me paint. Nonsense, right? But anyways, the point is, I have this, what was the family room in my house that's become my studio. So I finally moved my desk back here. So videos will all take place here now. Not that it really makes any difference, although, actually I guess the last videos I posted wasn't the sketchbook tour, the Bono Mouse. It would have been working on the Vlogmas drawings. That was like 10 feet away behind me. A desk facing the backyard, but that desk works better as a sewing desk. Etc., etc. Anyway, so I've rejigged. None of that matters. Point is, I'm going to do a sketchbook tour of... I'm now up on my third Ricky B. Rat sketchbook, but this is the first one. And by the way, I'll just sort of... I guess it doesn't matter. This video is probably going to get posted on Sunday, and this week it happens to be Easter Sunday. I'm filming this on Friday, so, you know, I have an hour to kill before I have to go to Good Friday services, so I was like, why don't I do something useful instead of sitting watching Facebook or surfing Facebook and watching YouTube videos? It's like, why don't I make a YouTube video so that other people can waste their time, right? Anyways, so that's the idea here. So Ricky... Nowadays, for anybody who's familiar with the Ricky B. Rat stuff, all 5 of you, hi! Ricky is now a 23-year-old dude who works as, like, the gopher at a recording studio and all that, but he didn't start out that way. So, this is the first page. Originally, it was actually called Mickey, because, and I'm going to zoom in, because this is a small sketchbook, so we want to... Even in focus? I hope it's in focus. It's hard to tell in the little viewfinder, but anyways, I think we're good there. So, initially I called him Mickey Bono, so Mickey B. Surprisingly, it took me like a month or so to realize this is probably a good way to get sued. So his name became Ricky. But, this is the first official proto-Ricky outside of the book. So he's saying, Mickey B loves you, your money, baby. Buy my album, Cheese Ain't Cheap. He's holding a heart-shaped block of cheese. he's clearly a lot more Bono in this, and douchey. And let me adjust the light there. I think that's better. Got one of these thingies in the background because, it's that thing where it seems bright in here. There's like 400-watt bulbs in the central light fixture in this room until you try and film something and it looks like you're in a dungeon. But anyways, so that's March 14th, 2023. We also have some drawings over here about how his tail connects with his ass. And obviously he likes low-rise pants. So, pardon the sniffles, I'm just getting over the flu. Which is also why there isn't going to be a Ricky B. Rat podcast this week. There's supposed to be, but again, just getting over the flu, and I guess I could do... Okay, so at this point in the drawing, Ricky's voice wasn't really established, but now it is, because I've been doing the podcast since last August, but... I guess right now it sounds like I could do a podcast with the voice and not break out in coughing spells, but I'm sure if I try to keep this up for half an hour, I'd be coughing. So anyways, Ricky's getting drunk this weekend because it's a long weekend, so no podcast. Anyways, I'll probably break into that voice. That wasn't what I initially envisioned him sounding like. It's what he wanted to be. So initially he was more like a rock dude. The ears are way too freaking small. That was a problem in the Bono Mouse book for that period, too, where the ears started to shrink. And then I remembered, no, proportionally the ears have to be huge on rats and mice. Anyways, so he's being a bit of a douchebag. He's clearly a music dude, rock star kind of guy. So that's that. But it changed. He evolved very quickly. And, the other thing I'll zoom in on is Ricky's real name. I was trying to figure out. Had to have B as a middle initial. And somewhere, I guess I looked at a list of, baby names or whatnot. That's how I usually pick character names. And Barrett just stood out at me. I want to say Barrett. It's a last name, and I think it kind of means bastard or something like that. I'm probably getting that wrong, and anyone whose last name is Barrett is probably offended at this point. But there was something about it that kind of, I was like, yeah, that fits him. And then Ratariff. Well, he's obviously a rock and roll guy, and he's a rat. Because even though the Bono stuff was like a mouse, there's something where he just kind of became making gestures that probably don't show up in the camera. Never mind. But he became more elongated in my mind, and that seemed more rat dude. So we got rat, and we got riff. Rat-a-riff. As you can tell, I originally thought, well, should he be Rattray or Rattenberg? Anyways, he's a rat-a-riff. So Ricky B. Rat. And that's his real name. Now we will... Some of these I'm going to... Actually, I'll stay zoomed in. The next drawing... Why don't I just hold this up? No, that's not going to work. I will just have to move the camera. Sorry. Amateur hour here. Hopefully that's in focus. So there he is. He's got his cheese. He's got his cigarette. He's leaning up against the amp. And he says, "Wife? Shh. We don't say the W word here." Now, as you can tell, you're getting that elongation I was talking about. And still kind of more of a rock star kind of character. And also a lot sleazier than Ricky himself actually has evolved into being. Anyways, then we started to do some one-off little cartoons in 2023. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So he's always a bit, at that point he was a bit of a creep, pervy, whatever. So he's got his mattress right on the floor, he's got his red leather pants off, and he's obviously feeling frisky. How's about a little more than bedhead, baby? A little double entendre. It's kind of more a single entendre, but I guess with the hair it could kind of be double. He's got his wine and his cheese. That's March 25th, 2023. Here's where the name changes. Because I realized calling a rat character Mickey is a bad idea. But I already had this joke written, so his name had to be something that would match with, that would rhyme with Quickie. So he's saying Quickie Ricky, because really it's like Mickey, Nicky, Ricky, I guess Dickie, but yeah. Dickie and Ricky both from Richard, right? So there were only a couple options at this time. I kind of had abandoned the Nick White show, but not completely. So I already had a character named Nick. So, actually some of these early comics are a little bit too Nick White. But anyway, so I went with Ricky for Richard. So he's saying, "Quickie Ricky? Really, baby?" I last as long as I want to. So there's that. And then now we're starting to get a little bit more the Ricky who we there. The Ricky he evolved into. Scratching his head, he says, "Sunday gardening? You mean watering your weed, baby?" So these kind of one-liner cartoons, I was posting them. Well, I was drawing them every day. I guess for a while I must have been posting them every day, but... And then we've got, "Shh, quiet, baby. I'm sleeping off the weekend." I realized, and let me zoom in. Michelob. Missed opportunity. It should say Mickey Lobe. Oh, well. Oh, well. I'm probably going to go through when I'm editing this and take out all the snorting sounds, because I have a post-nasal drip in case you can't tell. I'm sorry, it's gross. So, we got Ricky here. He's got his cheese pizza. "Yeah, baby, you know how I like it. Extra cheese, just like that." And he's leaning up against an amp still. I started having the idea of Ricky as a dude who's around music, but he doesn't really do anything. Because I couldn't envision him actually, singing in a band or playing an instrument. But I envision him as, always hanging around the live music scene. So that's kind of where we started to fall. And then, obviously, I missed a few days. This is April 14th. So he's saying, "Oh, hey, baby, why didn't I call? I was busy doing rat shit. Important cheese business." Yeah, that's it. And kind of looking a little nervous. And then another of my favorite Ricky cartoons. "What do you mean, hit the gym, baby? The exercise wheel? I hate that thing." And this is kind of the start of, obviously he's got cheese and all that, but he is a rat after all. So I was starting to think of world building, although this is long before I had envisioned Ratsville and Ratland and all that, and the other supporting characters, but still wanted there to be a little bit of, he's a dude, he's a punk rocker, but he's also a rat. So how are the rats going to exercise? They run in exercise wheels, right? And a little comment, "Moon rocks? Nah, baby, that's crazy talk. Everybody knows it's made of cheese." Again, leaning his ass against an amplifier, but not actually doing anything. By this point, April 18th, so that's a month into this. I thought, well, maybe I'm going to do something with this character. I should probably make an Instagram and a Facebook page. So we got Ricky going, "My own Instagram. But I thought we were cool, baby. You said I could crash at your place." So, and the Instagram is Ricky_B_rat. And it probably doesn't have that many more followers at this point than it did when I made it. Most of the followers are on Facebook so far. Which also has to do with advertising. But anyways, so then he's saying, "Getting real sick of these rainy days, baby. It's no good for the gear." And by this point I was starting, it might have been a little later in the book, where I was starting to go okay, is he a guy who he calls everyone baby? Because there are guys like that, right? Especially in the music business. I don't think it's as common now as it was in the 70s. But you do get the odd guy who just, everybody's baby. Sometimes they'll even do that to other guys. "Hey, baby." Just that's their common form of address. So I was debating, is he one of those guys, or is he actually talking to a girlfriend or whatever and calling her baby? So stay tuned for that. And then this one of my favorite drawings. I should do a big lino cut of that. So he's taking a nap. He's dreaming about driving a car. I think around this time, April 20th, of course, I'm posting this stuff on Facebook, and I'm saying, you know, my character, Ricky B. Rat, blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what Facebook does, right? It takes the information that you post, and it decides to shovel other content at you based on that. So I was starting already at this point to get, like, group and page suggestions for people who had pet rats, and finding out behavioral stuff about rats and mice. And one of the things I found out, and I've like rambled about this, I don't know, the blog post might not be up at the moment, but hang on, I gotta grab a quick drink of water. Pyra, edit this out. And we're back, sorry. Had to blow my nose and had to take a drink of water. So what I found was this study about like people can train rats to drive tiny little cars where they have like a pedal that they push to go forward, go turn left or whatever, and they train them to do this and all that. I think on Instagram, if you look at, is it Emperors of Mischief, I think, was the account, still is the account, where they had a couple rescue rats and they taught them to drive little cars around the kitchen and videotaped it and all, posted it online. It was very cute. But the study then that I learned about was they took, okay, so you know how you see the videos or photos of like rats in a cage in labs, and they're basically like in a shoebox. And obviously it stresses the rat out because they're supposed to be running around doing rat shit and all that, but and they're isolated, etc. So they have these tiny little cages, and but then they compare that to rats who have like a bigger cage and like enrichment and toys and stuff, right? And obviously the bigger cage, the rats are less stressed and they have less maladaptive behavior, yada yada yada. Anyway, so the study was they trained these two different kinds of rats to drive these little cars. And then they saw how they tested, like, I guess they would test the droppings and they could tell stress levels from that and whatnot. So the rats who had the big enrichment cages were more eager to learn because they're curious and they're not like traumatized and stuff. So they would go and they would go driving and all that, and they were the first ones to do it. The rats from the tiny cages were kind of terrified, but they did eventually, they were enticed, you know, initially with treats and all that to learn how to drive these little cars. And then what they did was they would provide access to the cars even if there wasn't like a treat for driving the cars. And they found that all of the rats would drive the little cars, but the ones that, like, and all of them had their stress levels reduced from driving, because they could self-determine, you know, it was a big open space, so they could decide, do I want to turn around in circles, do I want to go, you know, whatever. The rats who lived in the tiny cages actually benefited much more than, you know, because the other rats, they had toys and bigger cages, and they were less stressed to begin with, but the tiny cage rats really benefited from having access to the cars. Which, by the way, just the next time you hear somebody talk about wanting to restrict human abilities to go driving, just saying, you know, maybe the humans in the tiny little urban shoebox apartments are the ones who would benefit from a long drive in the country the most. Anyways, we can draw conclusions. And I think they were looking even at like depression markers and stuff for the rat study. So, hey Pyra, when you're editing this, try and remember to put a link to information about the study in the description. But anyways, it was one of those things that was really fascinating to learn about. So I've talked a long time on this, but anyways, there's Ricky imagining himself in his weird little hot rod. Because obviously I'm not somebody who normally draws cars, so this one is like it's leaning over to the side. But it's about the idea. Anyways, Moving on. So here's Ricky. He's in the dandelion patch, and he's a little pissed off. He's saying, "This isn't what I had in mind when you said you needed me to help with your weed problem, baby." He's been put to work in the garden. Now he's... Whoops. Sorry, I hit the wrong... What did I do? Ah! I hit something on... Oh. I think I touched the power on button, or it just randomly turns off at certain times. I don't know. Anyway, so there's Ricky taking his jacket off. Time to catch some rays, baby. I guess it must have been a Sunday weekend. So here he is, and I drew this in the hanging out in the Japanese garden at Bouchard. So, hence the little lantern. So he is in a garden somewhere. Well, yeah, baby, nice flowers, but you promised me tulips. Now he's obviously talking, getting kissed or whatever. There are tulips in the background, so he has selective hearing. Ricky to this day has selective hearing. And he's leaning against the stone lantern despite the please keep off sign. And he's smoking despite the no smoking sign. And there's Ricky trying to get some action. Been a long day, baby. How's about a little tail rub? I like a little burger with my cheese, baby. I'm not gonna spend forever on every page. Coronation, baby? Is that the Mexican beer? I'll take 2 with lime. Ricky don't care too much about... well, he probably cares about the British royal family insofar as... I don't know if it comes out in this book yet, but he developed into somebody who really idolizes Sid Vicious. So, the whole God Save the Queen song, he would be familiar with the British royal family from that. So he's evolved away from Bono and towards Sid, and the hair is kind of showing that, too. Friday, baby, time to make some noise. Leaning against the gear, he's not doing anything with it. Another variation on the trying to get some tail action. Got a sunburn on my tail, baby. Want to kiss it and make it better? Hump day, baby. Yeah, you know what the best cure for that headache is? I think when I posted this on Facebook, I posted with the caption, Ricky's cousin is a lab rat, so he knows these things. Something like that. Ricky in the garden again. I don't know, baby. How come all your date ideas involve fresh air and sunshine and witnesses? And the drooping tail, he's not thrilled. I was taking got black smudge on my fingers. I was taking a class in pastels, so we have a little... I think I may actually have posted some videos way back in 2023 of, pastel drawings I did from that class that involve pastel portraits of Ricky. Another of my favorite, where he's saying, yeah, baby. But he's thinking, the fuck is she talking about? Scratching his head. Back in the garden. Sure, baby. Nice Japanese Zen garden or whatever. I got a koan for you. What is the sound of one bra unhooking? Let's find out. Credit card fraud? What makes you think I know anything about that? Anyone could have used your card at the cheese shop, baby. Clearly not. It was around the time when... I'm not going to get into the whole rant, but I got my former accountant got hacked, and my data got breached. And I found out that somebody in Toronto, where I have never been, took out a whole bunch of credit cards in my name and whatnot. Now, when this drawing was done, I was spending a lot of time on the phone trying to sort that out. Fucking nightmare. And of course, the way things work in Canada, if you're a criminal, you don't actually go to jail. So, because now who knows? By the time I found out about it, it was months later. But I was able to give the police the the address at which they were telling the credit card companies to send stuff to. So presumably somebody from the fraud ring had access to that building. They could have traced it. I don't know if anything ever happened to it. Probably not. Every so often, I get a phone call from a bank asking me if I have taken out such and such Visa, and the answer is always no. Well, also the banks don't call the cops. They just decline the card. Because I asked one of the guys at that point, I'm like, are you calling the cops about this? No. Well, our policy is just to decline the card. I'm like, okay, I'm telling you, this is a thing. I can give you my RCMP case number. You guys have more information, and obviously this was just a couple days ago. You guys need to call the cops. No, our policy. You can call the police. Yeah, great. Nothing ever happens, right? Anyways, that's a rant for another day. So, anyways, moving on. Ricky's going, "Nah, baby, I'm not going out tonight. As far as you know." "I'm just saying, baby, we should totally build a maze. It'll be fun. It'll increase your property values. Come on." Again, that's like a nod to the rat stuff, although I realize in reality rats don't actually care for mazes. They just do them in labs because they get cheese at the end. But it's kind of a fun idea of Ricky's ideal backyard has a maze in it. That was a bit of a vulgar little thing. Oh, right. Peony. That's what you said you wanted. Phew, that's a relief. Wait, what's a peony? Oh, right, flowers. Good. As opposed to peony. And then this one. Zoom out just a little bit so you can make sure I see it all. This ended up becoming a lino cut print. At some point I got to do like a show through of some of my lino work. But I felt kind of a big leap forward with Ricky. So he is floating up in the air, high above the houses with his bubble gum and like kind of nervous. And the caption, whether it was something in the gum or the gummies, because Ricky does like drugs, Ricky didn't know, only that at this height he'd best not let go. All I wanted to say about that. So here I was making this fictional rat character and going like, it would be funny, kind of a nod to, high school. I hung out with the bad kids who liked getting stoned all the time and whatnot. So he's a bit of a nod to my high school friends who I've long since lost touch with. And also the music industry. Guys I used to know who, weed o'clock was at 10 in the morning, beer o'clock was at noon. And these are guys who are successful in the industry, so it didn't hamper them any, functional alcoholics and all that. So I have this rat character who's always, he's taking shrooms, he's doing acid, he's smoking weed, he's getting drunk, all these sorts of things. And to my mind, this is a fictional thing. Start finding out that actually no, rats. One of the posts I saw very commonly in those rat owner or mouse more rat owners than mouse owners, but on Facebook people were talking about, I want to let my rat kind of have some outside the cage time, run around, it's dinner time, whatever. I'm having a beer or a glass of wine with dinner, the rat runs up the table, sticks its head in the glass and starts chugging. Oh my God, what the hell? Apparently they like getting stoned and high. Apparently one of the things they will do is they do make, in the wild, they'll make like caches of food. So like, they'll like squirreling away. It's a different rodent. I don't know if squirrels get high. They seem to be more like little crackheads, but they'll like take cherries off of a tree and they'll make like a cache somewhere, and the cherries will ferment, but it's their food source for later. But they actually apparently will preferentially take fermented fruit over non-fermented fruit, and then they get drunk. And I thought that... Anyways, my point is, here I was making a fictional character who has a bit of a... well, he probably wouldn't say it's a drug problem. He'd say it's a drug hobby. But then you find out that actual rats and mice also like getting stoned and high and drunk. But anyway, so there we go. There's Ricky and he's flying. Whether it's by magic or by hallucination, we don't know. So, zoom in a little bit back in now. T-shirt. Why would I want one of those, baby? Well, he was initially drawn with a shirt because he was drawn as a version of Bono, but he kind of stopped wearing the shirt. Now, I have drawn Ricky wearing shirts since. In one of my later sketchbooks I could show you, his favorite shirt in the whole wide world is his Don't Fuck With The Wongs shirt that he paid $500 on eBay for. Probably nobody watching this video other than maybe a couple of my friends from Vancouver will even know what I'm talking about, but the Wongs, if you've ever heard of a punk band from Canada called SNFU, the singer of that band, Mr. Chai Pig, in the late 80s or early 90s, somewhere around there, he had a side band called the Wongs. My brother was a big fan of them and used to go to their shows and whatnot. But they had a shirt called Don't Fuck With The Wong that said Don't Fuck With The Wongs. I think it was a reference to like some 70s B movie or whatever. But my brother had a Don't Fuck With The Wong shirt and used to get in trouble over it and all that. But I don't think he has it anymore. I think he like traded it to a friend long ago. And anyways, there's some story. But if you want a Don't Fuck With The Wong shirt, it's very rare to even turn up on eBay at all. But if it does, it's going to cost you hundreds of dollars. So anyways, Ricky has a Don't Fuck With The Wong shirt that he's very proud of, but that's a more recent development. It actually turned up in one of the podcasts where he was arguing with his girlfriend, Baby, about the whole wearing that shirt out in public. Anyways, I mentioned the girlfriend, Baby. When I started developing, by the end of this book, I kind of decided his girlfriend is actually named Baby. Her real name's Barbara, but he calls her Baby. But that's already getting ahead of ourselves. Because, let's see, this is June 3rd, 2023. I think the first, like, story I wrote about Ricky B Goes to Sea, I think I wrote that at the end of July or early August when I joined my local writers group, and we have, like, a monthly reading night. So I wrote a short story. That is the basis for a graphic novel that I am still working on. But by that point, Baby is a character in that. I mean, she doesn't show up very much, but, you know, she is mentioned and her name is Baby. Anyways. So, nah, Baby, I didn't come over to help cook. He has other reasons for coming over to the house. At this point, I'm still envisioning Ricky as being in his 30s and Baby probably late 20s or whatever. They gradually moved lower. Ricky is 23, Baby is 19. They met in 8th grade algebra class. Ricky got held back a few grades. Or he got held back. He had to repeat 3rd grade twice, I think. And then he also kept flunking algebra. So that's how they ended up being in the same algebra class despite being 4 years apart. Anyways. That's getting ahead of myself. Yep, gotta back off of that. I don't know how well that shows. Yeah, you can kind of see that. Use a silver pen. A gray whisker. What? Already? Again, this is how you can tell that at this point Ricky was supposed to be in his 30s. An abstract art. I think I actually drew this while sitting in the art gallery of Greater Victoria. I think I was going to a lecture or something? I think so, yeah. When the curator talks. So Ricky's looking at this abstract painting. I don't know, Baby. I really don't see any resemblance. Of course, it looks exactly like him. But I kind of think you should buy it and put it in your bedroom. I later thought I should have phrased it about, but I kind of think you should take it home and straight to the bedroom or something like that. But whatever. These are still kind of brainstorming type of things. So, zoom in a bit again. Monday Blues, baby. I'll move it back in the center so it's a little more in focus. Another one of those stupid dates out in the stupid nature walk in the stupid fresh air. Yeah, baby, this is great. Well, let's go find some bushes. And that is a drawing along Dallas Road in Victoria. You get that's actually the United States, the Olympic mountain ranges, Strait of Juan de Fuca, and I think this is probably close to Clover Point, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's kind of the part of Dallas Road where I used to go walking at that point. This is definitely before I start going back to church. Please, Lord, ensure that I continue to get no Father's Day cards so I also don't have any child support bills. Again, this is when Ricky was still more of a sleazeball and in his 30s and whatnot. Anyways. Now Ricky's kind of in the story, like he and Baby aren't married yet, but he understands that he will marry Baby and they will have a whole bunch of kids in the future, and he's trying to figure out how he's going to afford them because Baby has expensive tastes. Anyways, at this point that wasn't the thing. Yeah, I got a garden, a magic garden. I think Art Gallery of Greater Victoria had a show that was like themed around mushrooms around this time. That kind of sticks out in my head. Ricky the Artiste. A title? I call it Food Truck, Tacos, and Tequila. Aftermath. I'm a serious artiste, baby. It looks like he barfed on the canvas. Which, that means he's the most honest artist in the abstract world with that title. Anyways. No campfires. Well, I say the great outdoors are overrated, baby. Let's go get it on the sofa indoors like civilized folks. He's not one for camping. Nah, baby, I'm not going swimming. Haven't you heard the news? Water is dangerous. Let's see. That one was June 21st, so I'm going to take a wild guess. This was June 23rd, 2023, right after the Titan submersible exploded, which also was, I mentioned the Ricky B Goes to Sea. I'm not going to give any spoilers for that story, but that was also in large part inspired by the news about Ocean Gate and expired carbon fiber. Yeah. Anyways. Ricky saying in this one, yeah, I can come over. Promise me there will be no chores, baby. I guess at this point I was just doing them on every page instead of just one per spread. Sorry I've been MIA, baby. I've been watching YouTube videos about deep sea diving mishaps. I think I'll just stick to pearl diving. Hey, baby, I got some leftover 4th of July boom booms. Wanna go bang bang? Hey, baby, I got you a new bikini, extra itsy bitsy. Yeah, very, very teeny. One of my friends on Facebook said, I just want to slap him when I posted this. I'm like, well, he is kind of slappable. He became sweeter as time went on. Nah, baby, hear me out. Cheese-flavored vodka. I'm telling you, we're going to be rich. Well, the rats would probably like that. Race your mouse day. First of all, I'm a rat. Second, I don't run, and my car's in the shop, baby. Still leaning against an amplifier, but now we're just seeing the side. Huh. Did I not? I guess I thought I had completely finished this book, but it looks like I didn't. I left a few blank pages. I mean, now on to another book, so it's going to stay that way. And then this is a little tiny sketch for an ink drawing I did later, and we do see Baby here. But this was this would have been months later, because that's referencing if you've seen footage of U2 at the Sphere when they started that in September of 2023. I forget which song it was. The Fly? Maybe it was The Fly. I don't think so. Well, anyways, one of their songs they have in the background, the video, like just barfing out different words and whatnot. One of them was Lust. So I got in a screen cap of a video or a reference photo of that where the band, so Edge and Bono, and then Baby by this point had been developed, and she is obsessed with taking selfies. Let me zoom in more. So she's obsessed with taking selfies, and you know, you hear people, and I get it. I would be pissed if I was standing behind and somebody like turns around and like does the selfie with the band in the background. It's kind of obnoxious in front row. I don't mind it so much if it's like people up in like the balconies or whatnot do it, because nobody can tell, right? Well, I mean, the people around you can tell, but it's not rude to the artists themselves. But in this case, like, Bono Mouse and Edge Mouse are, like, right in front of them. I'm pointing at things that aren't in frame. Anyways, point is, they're in front row, and they turn around to take selfies. Well, Baby does, and Ricky just does whatever Baby tells him. So anyways, that's kind of fun to have that sketch there. As you can see, it would help if I zoom out. As you can see, that is the end of that book. So there is my little sketchbook tour of the very first Ricky B. Rat book. So I am going to be trying to do videos more often. I've got a conference coming up that's it's like a church thing. Anyways, a group that I belong with is organizing a small conference in about, it's going to be happening in like 3 weeks. So when that is over, oh my god, it's not happening in 3 weeks, it's happening in 2 weeks. Anyways, when that is over, then I will have a little bit more time on my hands. Probably won't start super regular uploads. Well, I'm going to try and start like a Sunday video. That'll be filmed earlier in the week, obviously, like this one. Start posting a video a week. And the Sunday one would kind of be like a show and tell. So I think the next week I'm probably going to like show some of the ceramics work I've done, because I don't think I've done videos on that. Watch me, I say that and then I'll completely forget, and it'll be something completely different next week. But I'm going to be trying to post sort of a show and tell every Sunday. Later in the summer, I'm going to try and do a Wednesday video that's like a work with me type of thing, whether it's a painting. I did some of that before when I was doing that painting of Miles. Vote for Miles. Last August, last September. So do something like that. I also do printmaking. So, I mean, I post shorts and reels and stuff that have to do with printmaking, but I do want to start doing more printmaking at home, particularly like jelly plate stuff, lino cut and whatnot, and then, so I may start doing, like, anyways, I'll be doing some more work. I mentioned that Ricky B. Rat book, so, alright, let's pick up a random page so got something interesting in the background while I'm talking. What to do? Let me find that bubblegum drawing. There we go. This is our background. So, anyways, eventually I want to do like a weekly video that's like a, you know, paint with me, draw with me, ink with me, but whatever. So I'll start having some of that kind of content and build from there. I have a different idea about a third video, but that would be like almost like a show, so to speak, not like a artsy work with me type of thing. And anyways, that one's a little further down the line. But so there should be some more video content coming out, more content in general. I was just doing earlier this week like a plan for content calendar, as well as like merch and stuff like that. So we'll start ramping up in the next little bit. Anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this tour through early Ricky B. Rat cartoons, and like I said, more videos to come. I've got an entire Ricky completed sketchbook, although that other Ricky book I probably won't do a tour of anytime soon because it's there's a lot of planning for that graphic novel Ricky B Goes to Sea in it, so there'd be a lot of stuff where I'd have to like skip pages to avoid giving away spoilers or something, I think. So that tour probably I wouldn't do until after it's done. I've got some Noah's Archipelago stuff, although most of the Noah's Archipelago sketchbooks are kind of more text-based, because it's kind of like me writing down the script, but sometimes the odd drawing. So, but that might be interesting to go through as well. But anyways, hope you've enjoyed the video, as I think I've already said like 4 times, and catch up with you again later. And remember, if you're up high, don't let go of your bubble gum. Bye for now.